All right, welcome, class. I'm your host for today's explainer, and we are going to break down exactly when ownership of goods legally transfers from a seller to a buyer. Now, if you're a first-year business student, listen up, because this is a foundational concept in the Sale of Goods Act 1930 that you absolutely have to master. It's not just some dry legal theory, it's the literal reality of how business operates every single day. Picture this disastrous scenario. You just bought something incredibly valuable, right? But before you can even get it into your car, the whole place goes up in flames and is destroyed. So do you still have to pay for it, or does the seller take the financial hit? Well, the answer depends entirely on one specific legal question. Who held the title of ownership at the exact moment of that fire? And that brings us right to our golden rule. In business law, we use this Latin maxim, res paret domino. Basically, it just means that risk follows ownership. So the legal owner of the goods bears the loss, completely regardless of who actually has physical possession of them. Think about that. Even if the seller is still holding the item in their shop, if you are the legal owner on paper, you're the one footing the bill if it gets destroyed. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty legal assumptions, we have to define a really key term from your notes, deliverable state. According to Section 2, subsection 3, goods are in a deliverable state when they are in such a condition that the buyer is legally bound to take delivery of them. Put simply, are the goods 100% ready to go exactly as promised? Keep that in the back of your mind because the law relies heavily on whether the goods are actually ready for you. Okay, here's our syllabus for today's explainer. We'll cover the Golden Rule and Section 19. Goods ready for delivery, goods needing preparation, goods needing measurement, transferring unascertained goods, and finally, goods on trial. Let's jump in. First step on our syllabus, the Golden Rule and Section 19, finding the intention. In a perfect world, a contract tells us exactly when ownership transfers. But what if it doesn't? Well, Section 19 says the law has to step in and make assumptions based on the state of the goods. We're going to follow this simple progression from the easiest scenario, Section 20, where things are ready now, all the way down to Section 24, where you're taking things home on a trial basis. So let's start with number 2. Goods ready for delivery, covered by Section 20. The absolute foundational rule here is that ownership passes immediately when an unconditional contract is made for specific goods that are already in a deliverable state. The biggest takeaway? A delay in payment or a delay in the delivery itself literally doesn't matter. The title transfers the very second that contract is formed. Let's make this real. Imagine you go to a showroom and you buy a brand new, fully serviced Maruti car. Because that car is totally finished and sitting in a deliverable state, ownership transfers to you the moment you sign that unconditional contract. Even if you tell the dealer, hey, I'll come back tomorrow to pay and pick it up, you are the legal owner right now. If lightning strikes that dealership tonight, the risk of loss is entirely on you. Let's move to the next assumption. Number 3, goods needing preparation, under Section 21. Now, this is where it gets a little trickier. The goods exist, but the seller still has to do something to them to make them deliverable. Because of this, ownership only passes after the seller fixes or prepares the goods and, this is crucial, formally informs the buyer that they are ready. Think about buying a secondhand car, but it's got a flat tire. It is not in a deliverable state. The seller has to fix that puncture. So ownership and the risk of loss stays completely with the seller while that repair is happening. The title only transfers to you after the seller patches the tire and actually calls you to say, hey, the car is ready for pickup. Moving right along to number 4, goods needing measurement, covered by Section 22. Under this assumption, maybe the goods are physically ready, but we don't know the final price yet. Why? Because the seller needs to weigh, measure, or test them first. Ownership passes only after they do that measuring to ascertain the price and then notify you. Here's a great real-world example from our notes. A seller drops off a massive carpet at your house, but they tell you the final price depends on them measuring the square footage of your living room. Before they can measure it, someone steals the carpet right off your porch. So who bears the loss? The seller does. Since they hadn't measured it to figure out the price yet, ownership hadn't legally transferred to you. Next up, number 5, transferring unascertained goods, found in Section 23. So what are unascertained goods? Think of ordering generic bricks from a massive warehouse. They aren't specifically your bricks until someone pulls them aside. The magic legal phrase you really want to write down for your exams here is unconditional appropriation. This simply means officially selecting the items that match the description and setting them aside specifically for you, the buyer, with mutual consent and no strings attached. A perfect example of this is when a seller loads goods into a delivery lorry and tells the driver, the bailee, to take them to your house without any payment conditions attached. The literal act of loading them onto the truck for you is the moment they are unconditionally appropriated. Boom. Ownership transfers at that exact moment. Finally, let's explore our most complex assumption. Number 6, goods on trial from Section 24. This covers things sent on a sale or return basis. You take it home just to decide if you want it. In this scenario, ownership passes when you do one of 3 things. Number 1, you explicitly tell the seller you approve. Number 2, you do something that adopts the transaction, like reselling the item to someone else. Or number 3, you just keep the goods past a reasonable trial period. Let's put some numbers to this. Say you take 7 t-shirts from a store on a 5-day trial. If those shirts burn up in a house fire on day 2, the seller pays for the loss. Why? Because you hadn't approved them yet. The trial was active, so the seller still owned them. But if they burn on day 6, you pay. By keeping them past that 5-day limit, the law says you deemed your approval. Ownership legally transferred to you on day 5. Okay, let's do a super quick recap of these assumptions so they really stick. Section 20, ready now? Immediate transfer. Section 21, needs prep. Transfer happens after fixing and notifying. Section 22, needs pricing. After measuring and notifying. Section 23, unascertained goods. Unconditional appropriation is the trigger. And Section 24, on trial. Transfer upon your approval or when the clock runs out. All right, time for a quick pop quiz. Let's see if you can apply this like a true business pro. Based on our notes, consider this. You buy a standing crop of wheat. And yes, growing crops agreed to be severed count as goods. You buy this wheat today, but the agreement is the seller will harvest it tomorrow. Suddenly, tonight, a massive flood wipes out the entire field. Who bears the loss? Think about our rules. The wheat wasn't in a deliverable state yet, right? It still needed to be harvested by the seller. So, under Section 2.1 for preparation, since the seller hadn't done the prep, ownership hadn't transferred. The seller takes the entire loss. So, that wraps up today's explainer on the transfer of property. Study these assumptions closely, class. Whether you're buying a used car, getting a carpet measured, or tracking a delivery, the Sale of Goods Act is always running in the background. Knowing when you become the owner changes literally everything. So next time you buy something and say, I'll pick it up tomorrow, ask yourself, if lightning strikes tonight, whose wallet is taking the hit? Keep studying and I'll catch you in the next explainer.